Now we're going to remove all the parts that we can under the right side cover. The clutches, the shift shaft, the external clutch parts, the oil pump, and I believe that's it. So we'll start by taking the right side case off, and to do that all we need to do is take all these bolts off the outside perimeter. Okay, cover is off. Okay, now we have the two clutches. Yeah, there's two of them. This front one is a centrifugal clutch. It's normally disengaged. And the back one's a manual clutch. It's normally engaged. This is connected to your crankshaft. So as you speed up the engine, there's weights out there that will engage this drum and start turning the drum. And then that'll start turning this transmission. And if you're in gear, you'll start moving. When you shift gears, the shift lever disengages this clutch momentarily so you can shift. Okay, that's basically how it works. I'll go into it more and tear them down on the reassembly part. Okay, here's some external clutch parts, and we can just pull them off. All right, first thing we'll do is we'll disconnect this cover here. Okay, the bolts are off, and here's the parts that come off. This one here, and this part here, and this here. Now there's a nut here, 30 millimeter nut, and it has a flange on it, and the flange will be beaten into a hole in the crankshaft to serve as a lock nut. So you want to get a screwdriver in there and pry the flange up so it'll come off. And to get this nut off, you're going to need a deep 30 millimeter socket. And this nut is left-handed threaded, so to take it off you have to turn to the right. The whole engine is going to want to turn, so you wedge a penny under here as you turn this. You stick it in the gears there and that'll lock it up. Okay, here's a better shot of that flange being bent into the hole in the crankshaft. Well, that removes the nut, and here's the part of the flange that was bent into the hole in the crankshaft. There's a washer behind it too. And there's an O-ring that was behind that. Now to get this clutch off, it has to line up with there's dents in these aluminum holders for the clutch plates on this other disc. One of them is dented in, and the one straight across from it is kind of like dented in or ground off a little bit. Well, that one has to face towards this one, so the gears will clear. And then once you get that face in the right way, this whole thing will come off. Okay, then you can dump out the parts on the side. And it's off. Now to get this one off, we'll have to take these 4 bolts off and the springs, and then underneath that there's a special nut which requires a special tool. And also this thing is going to have a tendency to turn, so we're going to put this part back in again and put the penny in there in the gear to bind it. Okay. Okay, and bolts are off. Now we'll take this plate off and the springs. And you'll be able to see a special nut in here. Here's a special tool it needs. It's a 24 millimeter spanner wrench. It'll go in here. And that one is a normal thread. You'll turn it to the left to take it off. Okay, here's a special nut. And there's a washer behind it too. Comes right off. There's a washer behind this one too. Thick one. Now we're going to remove the external shift mechanism, this part in here. And all this comes off too. This was part of the external clutch parts. Okay, to take the external shift mechanism off, we need to remove the center case here. And there's 4 more bolts. There's one here on the outside of the case, and there's 3 more inside the case that need to come off. That's not all that was holding it. These other bolts were holding on before too. So let's remove those bolts and break the case loose. Okay, the bolts are out and it's been broken loose. So now we can take it off. There's also a thin washer here. This will be good to know when it's time to put it back together again. Well, everything just clears. Now we should just be able to pull the shift shaft off. But I noticed the other side was really dirty, so I'm going to have to clean it off first. Alright, clean off the other side. A little WD-40 on it. Let's see if I can get this out now. Okay, there's your shift shaft. And here's another washer that was on the other end of the shift shaft. It's a metal washer. There are 2 more parts that we can take off. One is the shift stopper and the other is the oil pump. And you have to take the oil pump off first because it covers up one of the bolts. There's 2 bolts to remove the shift stopper. So what you do is you turn the engine over until you see 2 Phillips head screws through these holes, and you take those 2 screws off. And these 2 bolts can stay on. They hold the oil pump together. They're not used to attach it. Well, it looks like I won't be taking the oil pump off. The screws are in too tight. I couldn't get a good swing at it with the brake pedal and the foot peg in the way. So I'm going to go ahead and take the engine out and remove the oil pump and the shift stopper on the workbench.